Imagine adopting a child, opening your heart and home, only to later believe that the child isn't a child at all. That's exactly what happened to Michael and Kristine Barnett, who adopted a 6-year-old girl from Ukraine in 2010. What started as an act of love turned into a nightmare of betrayal, deception, and criminal accusations. The Barnetts would later claim that Natalia Grace was not a young orphan, but a dangerous 22-year-old con artist, masquerading as a child to infiltrate their family. They accused her of manipulating them, threatening their lives, and engaging in behaviors far beyond her supposed age. But Natalia had her own story to tell, one that painted the Barnetts as abusive parents who abandoned her when she needed them most. This is the story of Natalia Grace, a tale of mystery, deceit, and legal drama that captivated the world. Was Natalia truly a child, or was she an imposter with sinister intentions? Let's dive into one of the most bizarre adoption stories ever told. In April 2010, Michael and Kristine Barnett were living the life they had always dreamed of, residing in Indiana. They were the proud parents of 3 biological sons, including their eldest, Jake, a teenage prodigy with autism, who was already being celebrated for his groundbreaking research in physics. The Barnetts wanted to share their love and stability with a child in need, so they decided to adopt. Through an adoption agency, they learned about Natalia Grace, a Ukrainian orphan with a rare form of dwarfism called spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia. According to the agency, Natalia was just 6 years old and had been living in the United States for about 2 years. Despite the challenges associated with her condition, the Barnetts felt they could provide her with the love and care she needed. When the Barnetts first met Natalia, they were struck by her small stature and shy demeanor. She was about 3 feet tall and had trouble walking without assistance. Kristine later recalled feeling an instant bond, describing Natalia as adorable and sweet, someone who just needed a chance. The adoption process moved quickly. Within a few weeks, Natalia officially became part of the Barnett family. Michael and Kristine introduced her to their sons, who welcomed her with open arms. The family's initial impressions were overwhelmingly positive. "We thought we were adopting a little girl who had been dealt a tough hand in life," Michael later said in an interview. "We wanted to give her a loving home." In the beginning, everything seemed normal. The Barnetts enrolled Natalia in school, took her to church, and scheduled medical appointments to address her condition. They bought her toys and clothes, treating her as their own. But over time, small inconsistencies began to emerge. Teachers and doctors expressed surprise at Natalia's advanced vocabulary and maturity. Kristine noticed that Natalia seemed unusually comfortable discussing adult topics for a child her age. One incident stood out in particular. While helping Natalia with a bath, Kristine noticed something unusual, physical signs that Natalia may have already gone through puberty. This discovery raised immediate questions about Natalia's true age. The Barnetts started to observe behaviors that didn't align with their understanding of a 6-year-old child. Natalia allegedly made chilling threats toward family members, including saying she wanted to harm Michael and Kristine while they slept. According to Kristine, an act that left the family terrified. "We began to feel like we were living in a horror movie," Kristine later recounted. Medical professionals added to the growing confusion. Bone density tests conducted on Natalia produced conflicting results. Some indicated she was closer to 8 or 9 years old, while others suggested she could be as old as 22. The uncertainty about her true age deepened the family's sense of unease. The breaking point came when Natalia allegedly confessed to a psychologist that she was much older than she claimed. According to Kristine, the psychologist reported that Natalia had admitted to being an adult and had a history of manipulating families for financial gain. The Barnetts were now convinced that Natalia was a con artist posing as a child. They believed her goal was to exploit them for housing, money, and care, all while endangering their family. "We were terrified," Michael later said. "We didn't know what she was capable of." By 2011, the Barnetts' once hopeful adoption had devolved into a nightmare. Michael and Kristine Barnett alleged that Natalia Grace wasn't the innocent child she appeared to be, but rather a manipulative adult with sinister intentions. The family claimed that Natalia's behavior grew increasingly disturbing and dangerous, leaving them in constant fear. Kristine recounted several alarming incidents. She claimed that Natalia once tried to push her into an electric fence, and another time mixed a household cleaning product into her coffee, allegedly saying, "I'm trying to poison you." On another occasion, Kristine said Natalia stood over their bed with a knife while they slept, saying she wanted to kill them. "She wasn't a child. She was a sociopath pretending to be a child," Kristine said in an interview. The Barnetts sought medical evaluations to uncover the truth about Natalia's age. Bone density tests, which analyzed the development of skeletal structures, were performed. While one test suggested she was a child, another placed her age in her late teens or early 20s. Kristine also pointed to physical evidence, such as Natalia's dental development and menstrual cycles, as proof that she was not a child. The couple claimed that Natalia herself had admitted to being older, allegedly telling them she was in her late teens when she arrived at their home. She said she lied about her age to escape a troubled past in Ukraine, Kristine said. However, other experts disputed these claims. Some argued that Natalia's behavior could be explained by trauma from her time in the orphanage. Others noted that bone density tests are not definitive when determining age, especially in individuals with certain medical conditions like dwarfism. In 2012, convinced that Natalia was an adult and a threat to their family, the Barnetts petitioned an Indiana court to change her legal age. They presented their evidence, including medical evaluations and personal testimonies, and successfully had Natalia's age changed from 8 to 22. With Natalia now legally recognized as an adult, the Barnetts took steps to separate her from the family. They rented her an apartment in Lafayette, Indiana, helped her apply for government assistance, and moved to Canada with their biological children. The Barnetts argued that their actions were necessary to protect their family. "She was an adult who lied to us," Michael later said. "We didn't abandon her. We gave her the tools to live independently." But Natalia told a very different story. In an emotional interview years later, she claimed that she had been abandoned by the only family she had ever known. "I was a child left to fend for myself," Natalia said, denying that she was an adult at the time, reporting that she struggled to care for herself. One neighbor recalled seeing her eating from a dumpster and crying about being left alone. These accounts painted a starkly different picture from the one presented by the Barnetts. As the story gained media attention, the public became deeply divided. Some sympathized with the Barnetts, believing they were victims of a sophisticated scam. Others saw Natalia as a victim herself, abandoned by the very people who had promised to care for her. After successfully petitioning the court to change Natalia's legal age from 8 to 22, the Barnetts took drastic steps to remove her from their lives. They rented her a small apartment in Lafayette, Indiana, and arranged for her basic needs, including covering her rent for a year and helping her apply for government assistance. Then, in 2013, they moved to Canada so that their eldest son, Jake, could attend a prestigious school for gifted students. To the Barnetts, this was the logical conclusion to a dangerous situation. They believed they had provided Natalia with the means to live independently as an adult, but to outsiders, the situation raised alarm bells. How could a child, or even a vulnerable adult, be left alone to fend for herself? Neighbors and acquaintances in Lafayette reported troubling accounts of Natalia's life after the Barnetts left. Some claimed they saw her digging through dumpsters for food, while others described her wandering the streets, appearing disoriented and upset. One neighbor recalled hearing Natalia cry out, "They left me. I don't know what to do." Natalia later alleged that the Barnetts had completely abandoned her without any support. "They told me they were going on vacation and never came back," she said in an interview. Natalia insisted that she was still a child at the time, despite the court ruling that legally changed her age. In 2019, years after the family had moved to Canada, authorities revisited the case. The Tippecanoe County Prosecutor's Office charged Michael and Kristine Barnett with neglect of a dependent, accusing them of abandoning Natalia while knowing she couldn't care for herself. The charges shocked the Barnetts, who maintained their innocence. Michael Barnett, in particular, was outspoken in his defense, claiming the charges were baseless and that Natalia was not the helpless victim she portrayed herself to be. "The truth will come out," he said in an interview. "We did nothing wrong." As the case gained traction, more conflicting accounts emerged. Natalia's former foster parents and other families who had interacted with her in the past provided varying testimonies about her age and behavior. One family claimed that Natalia had exhibited concerning behavior even before the Barnetts adopted her, including making threats and engaging in inappropriate interactions with other children. These accounts lent some credibility to the Barnetts' claims that Natalia was not who she appeared to be. However, other witnesses described Natalia as a sweet and vulnerable child who struggled to adapt to her circumstances. They argued that the Barnetts had overreacted to her behavior, failing to provide her with the support she needed to thrive. The court case against the Barnetts became a media spectacle, with both sides presenting compelling but conflicting narratives. Prosecutors argued that the Barnetts had knowingly abandoned a child, leaving her in a dangerous situation. The defense countered that Natalia was not a child, but an adult with a history of deception. They pointed to medical evaluations and Natalia's own alleged admissions as proof that the Barnetts had acted reasonably under the circumstances. The legal proceedings against Michael and Kristine Barnett became a media sensation, drawing widespread attention to the bizarre and conflicting nature of the case. On one hand, the prosecution argued that the couple had knowingly abandoned Natalia, leaving her vulnerable and alone. On the other hand, the defense painted the Barnetts as victims of an elaborate scam orchestrated by a manipulative adult posing as a child. The prosecution framed the Barnetts' actions as neglectful and reckless. They highlighted testimonies from neighbors and community members who claimed Natalia struggled to care for herself after being left alone. Reports of Natalia eating from dumpsters and crying for help painted a stark picture of abandonment. Prosecutors contended that regardless of her true age, Natalia was unable to live independently due to her physical condition and emotional state. Medical experts testified that while determining Natalia's exact age was difficult, some evidence suggested she was still a minor when the Barnetts left her in Lafayette. They argued that even if Natalia was older than initially believed, the Barnetts had a responsibility to ensure her safety and well-being. The defense countered with a detailed timeline of events, including the court ruling that had legally changed Natalia's age to 22. They argued that the Barnetts acted based on the belief that Natalia was an adult and that their decision to provide her with an apartment and resources was reasonable under the circumstances. Defense attorneys also emphasized the behavioral red flags that the Barnetts observed during their time with Natalia. They pointed to medical reports and psychological evaluations that suggested Natalia's age was inconsistent with her adoption records. Testimonies from other families and caregivers further supported the claim that Natalia exhibited troubling behavior before her time with the Barnetts. After weeks of testimony, the jury acquitted Michael Barnett of the neglect charges, concluding that the prosecution had failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Natalia was a minor at the time of the alleged abandonment. The court acknowledged the unusual circumstances of the case, including the conflicting medical evidence and Natalia's contested age. Kristine Barnett's trial faced delays, but the outcome of Michael's case cast significant doubt on the credibility of the charges. The legal battle ultimately left many questions unanswered, particularly regarding Natalia's true age and the nature of her behavior. The verdict did little to settle the public debate surrounding the case. Supporters of the Barnetts viewed the acquittal as vindication, believing the couple had been unfairly targeted for trying to protect their family. Others remained sympathetic to Natalia, arguing that she was a victim of both systemic failure and familial neglect. The case also sparked broader discussions about the complexities of international adoption, particularly the challenges of verifying the age and background of children from foreign orphanages. The Natalia Grace case quickly became a global media sensation, with documentaries, news specials, and podcasts dissecting its bizarre and conflicting narratives. Some programs portrayed the Barnetts as victims of a well-crafted scam, while others focused on Natalia's claims of abandonment and mistreatment. Public opinion remained deeply divided. For many, the case highlighted the vulnerabilities in international adoption processes and the difficulty of discerning the truth when medical evidence and personal testimonies conflict. The case reignited conversations revelations about the challenges of adopting children from foreign orphanages, where records are often incomplete or inaccurate. It also shed light on the need for better support systems for families navigating difficult adoption scenarios, particularly those involving children with unique medical or emotional needs. Psychologists and social workers called for reforms in adoption screening and post-adoption services, emphasizing the importance of monitoring family dynamics and addressing signs of distress early. The case of Natalia Grace remains shrouded in mystery, with critical questions left unanswered. Was Natalia a vulnerable child, abandoned by her adoptive parents, or was she an adult con artist manipulating the system? The truth may never be fully known. This case serves as a cautionary tale about the complexities of adoption and the devastating consequences of unresolved conflicts within families. It underscores the importance of transparency, support, and communication in ensuring the well-being of both children and parents. While the courts have made their ruling, the story of Natalia Grace and the Barnetts continues to provoke debate, leaving us all to question what we would do in their shoes.